The stench of iron and decay floods the room. Servants avert their eyes. Candles gutter in the moist air, their flames shrinking as if recoiling from what they are forced to illuminate. On the bed lies the figure who once terrified Europe, the Emperor of France, the master of armies, the man whose very name had made kings tremble. Now his lips drip with blood and bile, his throat convulses with each spasm, his body twisting helplessly as if trying to escape itself. The vomit is dark, grainy, like coffee grounds brewed in hell. Each convulsion seems to drag him further from the realm of men, and yet he clings on, groaning through clenched teeth. His gray eyes, those eyes that once surveyed continents, that once pierced the hearts of generals, are open but vacant, staring beyond the attendants who hover helpless at his side. They see nothing of the present. They fix instead on a battlefield no one else can see, as though even now he is chasing the ghost of victory across an endless horizon. It is a scene so cruel it borders on parody. This man who crowned himself emperor, who redrew the borders of nations, who spoke and made entire kingdoms rise or fall, now reduced to a prisoner on a damp, forsaken rock in the middle of the Atlantic. No banners, no trumpets, no armies. Only a bed that stinks of mold, a chamber that reeks of death, and a body unraveling in humiliation. The paradox cuts like a knife. The man who once commanded destiny can no longer command his own body. His empire has shrunk to 4 rotting walls. His subjects reduced to silent servants who can only watch as their master is consumed from within. And you stand there, forced to witness the collapse of power itself, stripped to its most pitiful truth. You're hearing what even his generals couldn't bear to write down. If you don't subscribe to Cursed Chronicles now, you're letting these hidden final truths vanish again into silence. The room closes in on you, tighter with every breath. The walls drip with mildew, their timber warped by years of rain seeping through cracks. The ceiling sags as if it cannot bear the weight of the island's dampness. Flies gather in restless clouds, buzzing in and out of the sour air. Each window is sealed, heavy curtains drawn, not to preserve dignity but to trap the sick within. The floorboards groan when the physicians move across them, their boots leaving marks in the damp. This is not a sick room, it is a chamber of slow decay. Napoleon lies there, surrounded by men who can do nothing but invent torments disguised as treatments. They force him into scalding baths, so hot the steam stings your own eyes just to watch. His skin reddens, blisters rise and burst, raw flesh peeling where water and heat collide with disease. They claim the baths will ease his agony, but all they do is boil him alive, leaving his body shivering and broken in the aftermath. He endures it in silence until he cannot, groans escaping in ragged bursts that echo through the moldy rafters. The smell of wet cloth and sickly flesh coats the room. The attendants fan at the air with rags, but nothing moves the stench that has settled like a curse. Sweat and bile seep into the sheets. The rank odor of his breath mingles with the smoke of cheap candles. It is a smell of rot that clings to everything it touches, even memory. And yet, between spasms, between the humiliations of his failing body, Napoleon still dictates. His voice, hoarse and fading, calls for ink, for paper. His hand trembles, but his will does not. He lists the possessions that must be divided, the tokens that must be preserved, the names of those who should inherit his legacy. It is not just a will, it is one last battlefield command. He signs not as a dying exile but as an emperor still. His pen scratches over the paper like a bayonet through flesh, each stroke an act of defiance against the body that betrays him. You look at him and see a contradiction that chills the blood. The body reduced to a wreck, the mind still clinging to the delusion of control. Every word written in that will is less a testament to riches than to pride, the desperate attempt of a man to command memory when he can no longer command men. And still, the walls seem to close further, the smell grows thicker, and the sound of flies grows louder, until you are certain that this room has swallowed more than one soul before him. The physicians gather around his bed with the confidence of men who believe they can master death. Their remedy is calomel, mercurous chloride, administered in doses so large that British medical records would later confess it was enough to poison a healthy man outright. They measure the powder with calm precision, as though this were not an emperor but a specimen upon a table. The white dust falls into liquid, stirred, swallowed, and forced into a body already convulsing with disease. But they do not stop there. What the mouth cannot endure, the body must. The next stage is humiliation disguised as cure. A violent enema, water laced with mercury, forced into him by strangers holding him down. The emperor who once stood unflinching beneath grapeshot now writhes against their hands, his dignity stripped away, his face pressed into the mattress as the liquid invades him. Then comes the sound, the groan of a man broken not by battle, but by medicine turned to torment. When it is over, silence falls. His body begins to expel itself in waves of blackened stool, darker with every passing hour. But woven in with the waste are fragments of something else. Pieces of his own stomach, tissue torn away from within. Each spasm carries part of him into the chamber pot, until the line between cure and dismemberment disappears. The servants recoil, unable to look upon the emperor's ruin, yet bound to stay as witnesses. The question hangs in the air, unspoken but heavy. What is truly killing him? Is it the cancer that gnawed at him in secret for years? Is it the mercury, turning remedy into poison? Or is it something more deliberate, an unseen hand, ensuring that the Emperor of France dies not only in exile but in torment, silenced once and for all? The walls of Longwood House do not answer. They only absorb the cries, the smells, the shame. History itself trembles with uncertainty, leaving behind a riddle without solution. If you're still watching but not subscribed, admit it in the comments. Why ignore the very empire of secrets we uncover for you? The night of May 4th descends heavy over Longwood, but there is no peace within its walls. The mercury has done its work, and the cancer its own. Napoleon lies twisted on his bed when a sudden convulsion seizes him. Blood vessels rupture in his eyes, and the whites turn a furious red, as though fire itself has taken root inside his skull. Those once piercing gray eyes, the eyes that could command armies with a glance, now glow with a haunting crimson haze. He drifts in and out of sense, and when his lips part, the room holds its breath. He is no longer speaking to the attendants or the doctors. He is barking orders into the shadows, voice hoarse but sharp, summoning phantoms only he can see. He calls for cavalry charges, for artillery lines, for formations on some invisible battlefield that spreads across the damp walls of Longwood House. The words carry the rhythm of authority, though the empire that once obeyed them is long gone. Then, a softer sound escapes, a whisper, barely formed, carried with the blood that fizzes at his lips. He breathes her name, Josephine, the wife who had died years before, the woman whose absence still haunted him more than defeat, more than exile. In the corner of the room, the living turn away, unable to watch their emperor reduced to yearning for a ghost. Yet in his mind, she is there, waiting just beyond the veil, her presence more real than the physicians who fuss around his wasted body. The chamber fills not with silence, but with invisible soldiers. He sees them, ranks of men he once commanded, spectral battalions summoned by a failing mind. They pass before him like shadows across a field at dusk. Their faces are gone, but their loyalty is etched into the hollow air. He lifts a trembling hand as if to review them, as if to remind himself that he was once master of Europe, not prisoner of an island. But to those who watch, it is a spectacle of ruin. The emperor who had bent kings to his will is now muttering broken commands into emptiness. The general who once made Europe tremble is reduced to whispering to ghosts. What was once power has become delusion. What was once command has dissolved into fragments of memory. Here, on this night, you see the truth that no crown can protect against. Glory can be stripped away until nothing remains but a voice cracking in the dark, clinging to names and armies that exist only in the mind of the dying. You are watching power collapse into madness. Yet if you have not subscribed to Cursed Chronicles, please like, subscribe and turn on notifications for more. May 5th begins in the deepest hours of night, when the island is silent and the ocean presses like a weight against the cliffs. Inside Longwood House, silence breaks with a sound no man can mistake, the rasp of the death rattle. His chest heaves in uneven bursts, quick, desperate gasps followed by long, terrifying pauses when no breath comes at all. It is Shane Stokes' respiration, the brain itself forgetting how to breathe. Every inhalation sounds like a struggle against drowning, every exhalation a surrender. At 3 in the morning, those gathered around the bed lean forward, straining to catch each faint syllable that slips from his cracked lips. The words are not whole sentences, but fragments torn from a lifetime of battles and obsessions. Some swear he gasped, France. Others heard army. One attendant insists he whispered, Josephine. Perhaps all are true, perhaps none. Each man heard what he wanted or feared from the emperor who had shaped their world. Even in his final delirium, Napoleon spoke in riddles, leaving behind echoes instead of clarity. As dawn creeps toward the island, the chamber grows crowded. 16 men and women press into the suffocating room, their clothes brushing against the damp walls, their eyes fixed on the bed. They stand as if at court, their faces grave, their posture stiff. But there is no ceremony here. It is a grotesque parody of an imperial audience. Courtiers gathered not to receive decrees, but to witness the slow collapse of the man who once commanded nations. The emperor lies at the center of it all, his skin mottled purple, his throat swollen so tight that sound no longer escapes. His mouth opens as if to cry out, but only guttural animal noises spill forth. His back arches against the sheets in silent agony, his body convulsing as though it still remembers the battlefield even as it dies. The clock inches forward to evening, each tick a sentence in his unrelenting decline. At last, at 5:49 p.m., the struggle ends. There is no thunderous final word, no defiant gesture, no blaze of glory. His body simply stops, pushed beyond every limit, leaving behind only stillness. In that moment, 16 witnesses watch the empire of flesh collapse into nothing. Napoleon's last breath is frozen in time here, but if you leave without subscribing to Cursed Chronicles, you too are choosing silence over memory. Will you be remembered or erased? The morning after his death, Longwood House becomes something worse than a tomb. It becomes a place of dissection. The billiard room, once a chamber of diversion, is stripped bare and turned into a morgue. Heavy curtains are drawn, shutting out the pale island light. Candles flicker against the green baize of the table where the body is laid, but their glow does little to hide what fills the air. When the physicians cut him open, the smell rolls through the room like a tide, sweet, rotten, unforgettable. It is the stench of cancer mixed with decay, a stench so powerful that grown men stagger back, covering their mouths, some fleeing into the corridor just to breathe again. The stomach is revealed first, and horror follows. The tumor is not a single growth but a monstrous corruption, so hardened with disease that the surgeons describe it as leathery, resistant to their knives. Near the pylorus, where food should pass into the intestines, there is only ruin, a hole wide enough for a finger to slip through, an open wound that had burned within him for years. Dr. Antimarchi demonstrates it with grim detachment, sliding his finger into the perforation as others turn away. Yet the tumor is not confined to the stomach. The disease has spread its pearls of death throughout his body. White nodules gleam across the intestines, scattered like jewels of malignancy, each one a mark of the slow invasion that had been consuming him cell by cell. His exile was not only a punishment by the British but by his own flesh, betraying him silently while he dictated memoirs and plotted escapes. Then comes the revelation buried within the autopsy notes. Scar tissue had fused the stomach to the liver, a natural adhesion that formed like a grotesque bandage. That scarring alone kept his stomach from rupturing into the abdomen. Without it, death would have struck years earlier. Fate allowed him to linger, to rot while still alive, granting the world not a swift exit but a drawn-out theater of suffering. The procedure, meant for science, quickly descends into something darker. Pieces of the emperor are spirited away, hidden under coats and slipped into pockets. Locks of hair are cut and claimed as relics. A fragment of rib disappears when the British turn their eyes. And whispered even then was the tale that something more intimate was taken, that the body of Napoleon was desecrated by the theft of his manhood, spirited across oceans, passed from collector to collector until it lay in a foreign urologist's study, shriveled and unrecognizable. The emperor who had once collected crowns now becomes a collection himself. Pieces scattered like trophies, his body divided among the curious and the covetous. His death did not end the invasion. Even in silence, his corpse was conquered. You have seen the emperor reduced to fragments, but if you are still watching without subscribing to Cursed Chronicles, then at least tell us in the comments where you're watching from. 19 years pass. The world has changed. Thrones have risen and fallen. Yet in 1840 the French demand their emperor back. A solemn procession climbs to the tomb on St. Helena, where the Atlantic winds have battered the stone and weeds have grown over the grave. Soldiers, priests, and officials gather as the lid is pried away. What they expect is a skeleton, a husk of memory. What they find silences even the most hardened among them. The coffin opens and there he lies, Napoleon nearly untouched by time. His skin, pale and smooth, has taken on the stillness of marble. His features are unmistakable, as though he had only closed his eyes for sleep. The green uniform that once blazed on battlefields remains intact, the gold trim still glinting in the dim light. Even his boots and his bicorn hat rest in their places, untouched by decay. It is as if the earth itself had refused to claim him. Whispers spread instantly. How could flesh last 19 years without surrendering to rot? Some insist the answer lies in poison, that arsenic taken into his system during exile had acted as a preservative. Others argue it was no accident. That secret embalming had been performed, hidden from official record. Still more point to the coffins themselves, layers of iron and mahogany that sealed the body so tightly the air could not reach it. But for those who stand gazing into the tomb, the explanations do not matter. What they see feels like a final trick, a last sleight of hand by history's greatest manipulator. Even in death, Napoleon bends the story around himself, leaving witnesses to wonder whether they look upon a miracle, a chemical deception, or an emperor who simply refused to surrender to oblivion. You've seen how even death itself bent around Napoleon. If you're not subscribed, confess in the comments, why deny yourself the forbidden history Cursed Chronicles brings to light? His empire lies in ashes, carved apart by those who once feared him, yet his body, preserved against nature, remains a relic the world cannot ignore. The man who bent Europe to his will, who crowned himself above kings, who dictated the shape of nations, was undone not by gunfire, not by armies, but by the silent gnawing of his own stomach. A conqueror of continents reduced to a prisoner of flesh. It is the last irony of power. The same hand that swept away monarchs could not sweep away the cancer that consumed him. The same voice that commanded legions could not command a single breath when his body betrayed him. And in this truth lies a shadow cast across all human ambition, that glory rots, crowns crumble, and death does not negotiate. Yet his story refuses to decay. Even in humiliation, even dissected and parceled into relics, Napoleon lingers. His name endures, carved deeper than the empires he built, preserved not in marble or monument, but in the dark fascination of his fall. You've walked through Napoleon's last days. If you still haven't subscribed to Cursed Chronicles, explain yourself below. What more proof do you need that history is far darker than the stories you were told?